Hey, what's up, guys? So I know it's been a while since I've done like real in-depth content like this, or not really in-depth. I kind of just wanted to showcase, my for fun Eugene deck. Now, I emphasize for fun because this is obviously not the best Dragon Empire deck by far, not even the second best. This is really not a deck I would take if I was like trying to go like really try hard seriously competitively. But as you guys know from my channel, this is a fan favorite of mine. So this is just, I would say, my build right now, or the closest to what with the cards that I have, because I still don't have that one Eugene promo. I don't know how I would fit it into the deck personally, but I really like the way I have it right now. This is what I would say my version of the most competitive version of the Eugene deck. Now, the reason I'm using the original Eugene ride line instead of like the grade 1 and the 0 of the Bav ride line is the only reason is because soul. By using the whole complete ride line, I can get one soul from the grade 1 and then another soul from the grade 2, which makes him a 15k attacker if your opponent has 2 or less rear guards, which is really good because this deck goes through soul like a lot. Like, you're using 2 to 3 soul a turn very consistently. Plus, I do use the Persona Ride cyclers in this deck, which I'm going to get to why I use those cards in this deck, but they're just really good cards in general. So this deck just requires a lot of soul, so the original Eugene ride line is just perfect for what I have this version of the deck doing. Let's get into the grade 3s. Bread and butter of the deck, basically, I would say. 3 copies of Persona Ride. I would say that this deck really does need and want its Persona Ride. Without Persona Ride, you're really only hitting like 23... 28, 33, but with Persona Ride, you're able to hit like that 43k mark, that 48k mark, just depending on the certain type of columns that you have present without triggers. But 3 copies of Persona Ride, 3 copies of Best Harvest. I've always just been a fan of just 3 copies of Best Harvest, even though that we do have a searcher for Best Harvest. I wouldn't run it any less than 3. I feel very happy if I can resolve this card at least like twice maximum. That's basically my goal. More often than not, the third one is just like pitched as an extra, either in the early game or in the mid to late game. And then 4 copies of the grade 3 booster for Eugene. This card's just come in really clutch because not only can it search Best Harvest, it deck thins your deck, and it's just a very key booster for the deck for the fact that this is your key target to rest with your Eugene's ability, because its ability to Soul Blast 1, stand it, and give it boost. And if nothing else, if you don't have any like front row, which has happened in like the extreme early game where my opponent didn't call anything and I kind of just happened to go first, because you kind of do want to go second with this deck so that you're able to resend your Vanguard with Oswald, but you can kind of just like use it, rest it, restand it if you retired something, and just like have it in the front row as a beater, which I really like. It's a beater and a booster, and those are kind of like my favorite types of cards in Cardfight Vanguard. Getting on to the 2s. 4 copies of Brachio. Brachio is still your bread and butter baby of this deck. It just does everything for this deck. The fact that it rests itself to retire, the fact that if it's rested, period, you can restand it if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards. It's just really clutch for what Eugene wants to do. And your other bread and butter of the deck is Dustin. Again, he's your real bread and butter of the deck, because not only can he use his ability, you don't have to retire with his ability to just like soul 1 and draw 1. Again, just your bread and butter of the Eugene deck, because you really can only use this card with Eugene, and it's where it works best. Its secondary ability doesn't require you to have a Eugene Vanguard, so there are niche scenarios where I would rush with this card in the early game, but it does cost a Soul Blast for his 2k buff for every open rearguard circle your opponent has. But that is it's another key factor of the deck of why you want to run the Eugene ride line. At least that's my preferred ride line right now for this deck, because this deck is hankering for soul. You use 2 soul minimum a turn with your 2 grade 3 boosters, and if you have at least 1 Dustin on the board, which usually I do have 1 Dustin on the board, that's 3 soul in 1 turn. And then 4 copies of the Persona Ride Pitcher. Now, the reason that we're running the Persona Ride Pitcher in this deck is just because it complements the deck really well in terms of pitching it in the early game for Ride instead of pitching any other pieces is like a really good recycle to whereas, hey, you pitched, you draw a card. So it becomes a free discard for your Ride, obviously. But the main reason why I do run it in this deck versus running Meteor Flare Dragon, even though Meteor Flare Dragon can basically like turn off resist type effects except for Eva, this just retires too, which the only reason, that's literally besides the pitch fodder, the only reason I play this card is because it's CB1. If you Persona Road, you get to retire a whole column, which is just very nice for this deck because it becomes a 2-for-1 if you Persona Road. On to the grade 1s. This is literally, besides Perfect Guards, this is the only grade 1 you play in this deck is 4 copies of Oswald. Unfortunately, you need this card at 4 copies, even though its effect really only works behind the Vanguard circle. But, again, he's another bread and butter card of this deck. This is what allows you to multi-attack in Eugene. So that's just the main reason where, like, whether you like it or not, you have to run this card at 4 copies, especially since it can get sniped. And then I'm just running 4 D Perfect Guards in this deck. And my reasoning for just running D Perfect Guards in this deck is because Jet just got hit. So whether you like it or not, kind of like Jet's really not the top dog right now. Not that it's still not a really good deck. I think what Stride decks do by themselves is just really a major power gap between what everybody else does. But the main contenders right now is Willista and Gandiva. And if I can give myself like a slight edge versus like regular decks, instead of just like, oh, hey, I have this free against Stride decks, I would just rather do that because even if I am against a Stride deck matchup, it's just very unfavorable for this deck in general. So I would rather just have the extra DPG. You can run the Blitzorder PG if you really wanted to. This is just like a metagame call for me personally. Going on to the triggers. Again, another metagame call for me personally. We're just playing the 4 normal heal triggers. I've always been a fan of normal heals versus the effect heals. The effect heals just they're not for me personally. I feel like the effect heals are very catered to what you see in your metagame, or like what metagame you are preparing for, or what you expect to see. So 4 regular crits, 4 into soul crits. Again, better to have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. But if you don't have them, you don't necessarily need them. Those are just for those niche scenarios where like, man, I really do need that soul. 3 effect front triggers, and then one of the new Cray Elemental OT, Valnut. The reason that we're running Valnut over the Dragon Empire OT is because the Dragon Empire OT conflicts with Eugene's restand condition, with which Eugene's restand condition is Eugene has to be boosted, but if you check, it has to be boosted by Oswald, but if you check the OT on your first Vanguard swing, then you can't get the restand off of Oswald anymore, which technically you're getting a better restand, but it's kind of like a little bit of confliction in that area. So that's the reason why I just opted out for Valnut, to whereas I have no conflictions, to whereas I'm not going to be missing out on that extra attack, because Valnut's going to get me that extra attack regardless if my Vanguard restood or not. That's my main reasoning for that. But yeah, just a little quick deck profile of what I was running at locals. That was my first locals from my little hiatus that I did. I know there hasn't been much content up in the channel. I do want to apologize for that. I am still in the process of moving. I will be fully moved into my apartment by the end of this coming weekend. So just expect to see more content from me after this weekend. I'm still going to show you guys Drajuled. Definitely that Drajuled vlog video is going to be coming out this locals, and the deck profile will be coming out soon. But this is just another video just to hold you guys down till then. And yeah, Eugene best deck, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Just really show your support for the channel. I am very appreciative of the support that I have been getting recently, even though I haven't been uploading as consistently. And just talking to you guys on the community post is just really something I really do enjoy doing on this channel. But anyways, guys, later.